Stew in a Stew is the 14th episode of the third season of Wings. This is directed by Andy Ackerman, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I talk about the episode. I really liked it, but I don't have a tremendous amount to say because not a lot happens. We have quite lengthy scenes, but it's still really entertaining. And it's set on the annual evaluation day where Joe evaluates all of his employees, plus Lowell. Lowell is technically an employee of the airport, but he didn't want to be left out, so Joe gave him a pretty good evaluation, and Lowell wasn't necessarily happy. It was entertaining enough. And then Joe evaluates Faye and basically tells her she's doing everything perfectly, she's a brilliant employee, but she's not getting her raise this year because of the economy. And Faye ultimately is okay with this, or as okay as she can be, because if the economy's bad, what can you do? She then found some ways to save money at Sandpiper. It seems like she was taking this really well. And then new leather jackets arrived for Joe and Brian. And Brian particularly was very excited. He made a big show of how expensive they were. And considering Faye had just been turned down for her raise, she didn't exactly take that very well. Joe tried to say he'd bought them a few weeks ago, but what difference is a few weeks going to make? Joe, to his credit, says he'll send them back, but it's too much for Faye. It's not about not getting the raise, it's about the way she's treated. And she leaves, and they really struggle afterwards, which is to be expected. Brian finds a replacement for Faye, but she can't speak English. She's a woman called Teresa, played by Fabian, and clearly she's not capable of doing the job. Faye then comes back. Maybe for a moment we were led to believe she was returning to work, but that is something that is not the case. We learn very quickly, and I didn't see this bit coming. I really liked this. She was collecting a few personal items, and she told Joe, I can't come back. I've got a new job. And Joe asks her where. She takes off her coat and goes to work at Roy's over at Aeromas. I loved that. I thought the reveal was brilliant. The timing of it was really great. And then the bulk of the rest of the episode, I actually remembered really well from the first time I watched this episode. I watched this maybe 4 years ago, maybe a little over that. And there are some episodes that I remember, some episodes that I don't. This scene in particular, I remembered really well. And Brian tells the story because he's heard the story so many times from Joe and Faye. And it's the story of how Joe and Faye met. Joe was on an airplane, feeling sorry for himself because he's a pilot for a charter company. This is, of course, before the days of Sandpiper as we know it. And Faye is being forced to retire as an air stewardess. And she's not happy about that. I love her costume in this as well. It looks brilliant. And they meet and they bond. Well, Faye is very drunk. Then she sobers up and they continue to bond and they talk about the venture that we now know as Sandpiper. And it was a lovely encounter. It's a lovely scene. It's very, very well done. And it doesn't surprise me that I remembered it really well. And of course we end with them being friends again. Faye coming back to work at Sandpiper. And I rather enjoyed it a lot. So it's a really good episode. I haven't mentioned them, but Helen, Roy, and Antonio are also in it a little bit, but it's mostly Joe, Brian, and Faye. And I thought it was a decent episode. Not a lot of variety. A lot of the scenes are quite long as well. Not too long, but we're not jumping around a lot. But I think they did a good job with it. And it doesn't surprise me that the second half of this, I remembered really, really well. Stew in a Stew is not a bad episode of Wings at all.